I'd literally never watched a game of football before going to Pro Kick. So yeah, we do classroom-based stuff, and I didn't know any protection, I didn't even know names of positions. I think I could name a quarterback, and that was about it. Tom Brady was probably the only person I could have named.
Welcome to the Let's Reign podcast, revealing conversations with UC coaches, players, and administrators. I'm your host, Dan Horde. Our guest is one of the best punters in college football, Mason Fletcher from Melbourne, Australia, the site of the 1956 Summer Olympics. Melbourne is a huge city, isn't it?
Huge. I think we've got 5 or 6 million people. So yeah, I was very lucky. We grew up in a huge city that was really nice, and I was still 10 minutes away from the beach. So pretty lucky. Yeah.
Like to visit someday. It's on the bucket list. We'll see if I can get there.
Yeah, you should.
So I want people to imagine an 18-year-old high school kid playing for a Super Bowl champion. That was kind of the story of your dad early in his 23-year professional career as an Australian rules football player. He was on a championship team at 18 years old. 18,
yeah. He played the whole season as an 18-year-old. He was 168 pounds, played on guys that were 240, 215, kind of that range, and won a Super Bowl. Was lucky enough to win a Super Bowl, and I think there was 5 other guys that were 18 on that team. They called the Baby Bombers, and he was obviously a freak of nature and a genetic freak, and he played for 23 odd years, and I think he went to school the next day after winning the Super Bowl. So that's a little interesting tidbit there, but yeah, it's insane to think about, isn't it?
Because he had such a long professional career, you were able to see him play. I mean, a lot of children of professional athletes, they're retired before you could ever even experience it, but up until your teenage years, he was playing.
Yeah, I was 15 and 16 his last season, which is kind of insane because the other kids were all, 3 to 6 and maybe a couple 8, 9-year-olds in there, and I was 15, 16, and he was still playing. I was kind of like LeBron, really. Like, we were 2 years off playing with each other, which is kind of scary to think about, but yeah.
So he was known as one of the best defenders of all time in Australian rules football. Was it challenging to be his son?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think there's just an expectation when you're born into a bloodline like that, where his dad played a lot of games too. I think both of them together are the 2nd or 3rd all-time father and son records holding, or maybe even 1st. We'll have to check that. But yeah, it's a lot that goes into that, and he was very good about it. He'd come to my games, and he'd have a hoodie on, and he'd have a hat on, and be hiding around, which was always nice. He was never too into it for me and give me pointers when I needed to, but he was good in that sense. But there was also a big public perception that you kind of just had to play whether you enjoyed it or not, or whether you're really good at it or not. And I found that I was pretty good at it, but it was something that I didn't genuinely love doing. I think I liked the thought of it more than actually being a professional Australian football player, and we found out a little later that wasn't meant to be the case.
Well, you might have followed in his footsteps, but you had a stress fracture in your spine, correct? Explain how that happened and how bad it was.
So in my draft year, got invited to the National Combine, I played on the state representative team, did all the stuff that I probably had to, and then, just wasn't meant to be, and I had a stress fracture in my L5, and that set me back for 12 months. It was basically just an overuse injury. It was just from doing a lot of running. We run 11, 12 miles an hour, 12 miles a game. It was just a lot of build up on a young body, and I probably was doing a little too much, and I just have to sit 12 months out. There's no surgery for that, so you kind of just have to let it heal on its own. And I think I couldn't jog or anything for 10 of those 12 months, so that was pretty tough. And as you know, a year out in sport's a long time, and probably came back and had to figure out something else to do, and I think it worked out pretty well.
It certainly did. So instead of Aussie rules football, you gravitated toward American football by attending Pro Kick, the well-known academy in Australia that helps Australian athletes train to get college scholarships in the U.S. That's really the goal now. They've had NFL players too. But describe what Pro Kick is like. I mean, we envision punting drills and stuff, but are you learning football in the classroom? Is there a lot of physical training? What is it like?
I'd literally never watched a game of football before going to Pro Kick. So yeah, we do classroom-based stuff, and Yeah, I didn't know any protection, I didn't even know names of positions. I think I could name a quarterback, and that was about it. Tom Brady was probably the only person I could have named. Yeah, so we did a lot of classroom stuff, where 5-6 days a week actual punting, and then you add weight room stuff in there, because the weight room stuff we do back home's night and day different to what we do here, and even strength coaches and stuff like that. It's not like it is here in Australia, so that was something that take a little bit of getting used to. But yeah, they were on a tight ship down there. We got John Smith and Tim Gleason and Nathan Chapman, and they taught me everything I know. And as I said, 5 or 6 days a week of strictly punting. And yeah, I think the success they've had in college football is due to the hard work and the system that they have there.
Because of the amount of kicking in Aussie rules football, do Australian kids grow up, instead of playing catch, like kicking to each other?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. We don't really have many throwing sports. We have cricket, which is kind of, I don't want to say dying out, but it's not our most popular sport. It'd be rugby and Australian football, which is to pass it to each other in the game of Australian football. You literally have to punt it. So yeah, it kind of just goes hand in hand, really. I can't believe it took so long for people to realise that, but yeah, it's worked out pretty well for us Australians.
So your predecessor as the starting punter at UC was Jimmy Smith, who had a tremendous career, 4 times All-League finalist for the Ray Guy Award. He was an All-American, just as you are. How did the two of you get connected?
Yeah, it was definitely through Pro Kick.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of, there was a few schools looking at the time, and Cincinnati had opened up, and they wanted someone that, well, the hard thing about Pro Kick is you've got guys at other schools, and you've got a guy like Jimmy who did so damn well that they need to keep, refilling guys like that in a spot where someone has done so well. So I was the one that got the call up, and I got in contact with James straight away, and he didn't really have to sell this place to me, but he did pretty quickly. And yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was Coach Mason at the time. I punted on FaceTime to him, and yeah, I spoke to Coach Fickle a day later, who was our head coach at the time, and about 3 months after that, you're on a plane over here, and you just get stuck into it and thrown in the fire.
So you committed to play here without ever traveling here, without ever seeing the place, anything like that?
Never, really. It was just basically off the word of the people that were here, and I think Cincinnati's a great place where it's kind of like one of those, it's a big school where it sells itself, really, and I didn't really need too much selling. I kind of, everything that popped up on obviously Google and YouTube and stuff, it sold itself, and then yeah, spoke to Jimmy and the coaches, and it happened pretty fast, and yeah, no complaints so far.
Had you traveled outside of Australia prior to coming here?
Yeah, I'd never been to the States, but I've been very lucky with my parents that they took us to see the world and stuff. So I've been to a few countries, which is, I think it's the best thing you can do, travel. So I've been very blessed in that sense.
You told me once that you didn't like American football when you first got here.
Yeah, it's taken a bit of growing too, that's for sure. It's just so different to what I was used to. Like, Australian football and soccer are my 2 favorite sports, and they're both so free-flowing and just so different, and they're both 360 sports, and it was just something. As I said, I could have named Tom Brady when I first came over here, and that was probably pushing it. But yeah, I absolutely love it now, and it's been my life for the last 4 years, and hopefully it is in the future too. But it's taught me, football aside, it's taught me a lot about life, and that's something that you'll never be able to compete with, I don't think.
So as a true freshman, you were the punter for the team that went to the college football 4-team playoff, despite never having done it in a game before. Do you remember your first punt and what it felt like?
Yeah, I remember we were actually just out there. We were backed up against Miami, Ohio. We were beating them, but we were backed up, and I think it was in the 2nd or 3rd quarter. And I just remember thinking to myself, and Coach Mason said to me at the time, just get the first one out of the way and you'll be fine. And that's kind of how it happened, yeah.
And what about the experience of being on that team, reaching a level that this university had never reached before?
Yeah, it was perfect, really. It was just poetry every time we went out there. It was awesome. Yeah, we have a great group of guys on that team, that some even that didn't get drafted or didn't play pro football, but the guys that did as well, that you're still in contact with these days. And I'm always hitting up Ahmad and Kobe for advice and stuff like that. And you kind of just blessed with people like that. Great, obviously great talented footballers, but better people, and I think that holds them. That's why that team was so good.
So you were really good that year, and then the following year, finalist for the Ray Guy Award, American Athletic Conference Special Teams Player of the Year, 3rd-team All-American. Did you exceed your own expectations that year?
Probably a little bit, yeah. I think it was a funny old year that year. We were a pretty good team. Obviously lost that last game, which kind of killed us. But our punt team was my middle shields, Wilson Huber, that was on the Vikings for a little bit and had played 5-6 years of college football, which you kind of very rare to have on a team, especially with the transfer portal and stuff like that now. And I was blessed with people in front of me like him and Josh Wiley that did their job so well that it made my job pretty easy. But yeah, we had Ricky Brown that year, who was our special teams QC, who I owe a lot of credit to, and he's talked a lot with me about being a pro and stuff like that, and I owe a lot of credit to him. And I probably did exceed my own expectations, to be honest. It was a hell of a year.
Last year was also a very good year, although statistically not quite as good. And then we learned after the fact that you were hurt. You played through injury last year. What happened and how difficult was it?
Yeah, it was tough. I had what they call a sports hernia, which is a very kind of broad term now, but it's basically a surgery I had to end up getting that I knew I had to. So December 22 came back and, my groins weren't feeling great. My core was always tight, and we probably figured out something was happening there. And then felt pretty good within spring ball, and then came out and run one day, and it was kind of back there. And that's when I probably thought we were in trouble. I probably knew I needed surgery a lot before the season started, for a lot of months before the season started. And then, I think it's just something you do when you play a team sport. I knew I could do my job at a high enough level. I don't think I was at my best at all, but I knew I could do my job at a high enough level. And when you play a team sport, I think you just got to put pain and suffering and that to the side. And, I went out there and did my job to the best of my ability. And it was pretty tough. But, we're getting to the end of the season, and I knew I needed surgery, and then, got that fixed up. And we also have the best medical staff and athletic training staff in the country. And I've got Aaron Himmler, who I honestly can't thank enough. He's been like a second dad to me over here, and I could go to him for anything, and you can't really ask for much more. And, we got that fixed up, and I feel great now. So knock on wood, we can continue that.
Are you proud of the fact that most of us that watched you punt last year did not know?
When you say it like that, yes. I'd never thought of it like that, but for sure. I think, as I said, it's just probably being ingrained in me. My dad had every injury you could think of, so it was kind of just, as I said, when you play a team sport, it's just something you have to do sometimes.
So this year is year 4, and your job title is expanding. You are adding holder to punters, so you'll be holding on field goals and PATs, or at least right now you're the leading candidate to be the holder. How naturally has that come to you, or is that something that's really difficult considering your background?
Oh, it's something that us Australians are just not used to at all. It's a totally different skill set. But I had Coach Mason my freshman year, even though I knew I wasn't going to be the holder and Bryce was going to be doing it. I was, catching 100 balls a day on the sideline. And at camp we did, I think, 23 days that year, and I did, I think, 200 balls a day. I've been very lucky. We had Bryce Burton in front of me, who's a great friend of mine, was really good at it, and I learned a lot from him, and probably could have done it the last 2 years, or at least the last year. And so I learned a lot from him, but ready to go. And I think now it's just another way to get on the field as a specialist. So we don't get out there as much as you want, but it's just another way out there, and really, really excited to go for it.
Do you legitimately look at it now as half of your job?
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you want to play in the NFL, I think it's more than half your job in the NFL. And, you speak to special teams coaches, they say it's 60-70% of the job now. And kickers are pretty picky, so you got to be good at it. But games come down the line to a kick, and you've got to do your own job. And if a part of that job's holding, I'll be a holder.
Your backup this year has the same last name. Your younger brother, Max, has transferred from Arkansas to Cincinnati, and he was great last year at Arkansas, second team All-SEC, so UC is getting another great punter into the pipeline. Was this something that you two had talked about, or did it come about pretty quickly?
I think it's never something we really mentioned, I don't think. I think, he did really enjoy it there, and Fayetteville's a really nice place, and I think, some stuff happened, and it kind of came down to it, and I think the world just works in mysterious ways sometimes. It kind of just happened when it needed to at the perfect time, and he hit me up and he said he was maybe thinking about leaving, and I didn't have any kind of, I didn't really know what to say to him, to be honest with you. And then I thought, well, I've only got one more year here. He hasn't redshirted yet, and I was thinking to myself, that maybe that kind of could work out. And then I probably later that night, I probably thought to myself, no, there's no way that could happen. And then I wake up the next day, and maybe I saw Coach Combs in the weight room, I said, look, this is probably something that we could do. And he was in all in for it. And, 2 weeks later, he was here. And, we're a long way from home, but, I get to see him every day now, which is nice.
His first game at Arkansas happened to be against UC a couple of years ago. Your parents came from Australia to be there, which was really cool. But prior to that, you guys went a couple of years without seeing each other, basically. So it has to be great for the two of you now to at least get to spend a year as teammates in the U.S.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I probably inspired him in a little way to, pick up punting and come over here. And he saw me do that and thought that's something that he'd be good at. And he's a super talent and he works really hard and he's a good kid. And he's going to be a great player, but as you said, spending a year with him after you've probably spent 2.5 years and not seen him, which is pretty tough. It's lucky we're on the same floor in an apartment, so we're close, but not living on top of each other, which probably wouldn't end up well. But very blessed, very blessed.
So your goal is to punt in the NFL. It's not always an easy transition from college punter to NFL punter, not even because you have an Australian background, but college teams do things in the punt game that NFL teams don't do. You got the rugby style punts, etc. What is the biggest challenge for you when you do eventually try to make that next step?
I think the schemes are different in the NFL, as you said, that we do a little bit of a rugby style, but we do hit pro style as well. So Coach Combs has been good in that aspect. I've hit pro style for my second and third year, and we'll be doing it again this year. I was recruited off that, so I think that's my go-to. I think in college, having a guy that can roll out just adds another element for the punt block team that's out there to think about. But as you said, I think it's just a different scheme. They kind of just set it up like a big cup, whereas in college football where we spread it out a lot more, and that'll just be something that takes a bit of getting used to. But I think if you can punt a ball, you can punt a ball, and I'd like to think I can do that.
So your first year you experienced a near perfect season. Last year you experienced a tough season. What is the biggest reason for optimism for you going into this year?
I think we just got a great crew out there. I'm just coming off a lift today and pretty sore from that, but we just had a finish, and that was probably the toughest thing we've done. And I think we had a crew that had a whole crew out there that just got stuck into it. There was no complaining. There was people that wanted to be there, and you're not begging people to come in and stuff like that. And it's just a bunch of people that want to be here and want to play for the Seaport that's on the chest. And I think when you've got a baseline of that, I think you're in for a good season. I think.
You've been an ambassador for UC football over the past few years. What have you loved so much about the experience of going to school here and playing for UC?
This place has been everything for me. It kind of gave me a lifeline, and that's something I'll never be able to repay fully. But I love coming in here every day, and it's probably sad that we've only got 6-7 months left of doing that. But I wake up, and Coach Combs has taught me to wake up. You wake up with a smile on your face, and you're going to have a good day. And I get to come in here and do that every single day. And we got the best fans in the country. We've got coaches who truly care about you as a person as well as a footballer. And I really don't think you can ask for much more than that, because you can run a great program off being good people, and I think that's a baseline. And as I said, I get to come in here every day, and I think God's blessed me so to be on extreme, and I'm just really thankful for that.
There have been some positions at Cincinnati where there's been a great tradition. Tight end immediately comes to mind, topped off by Travis Kelce. How about punter? Kevin Huber, Jimmy Smith, yourself. Your brother's going to follow in your footsteps. Is Cincinnati becoming punter you?
I'd like to think so. I think when you put it like that, I think, why not? Why not? That's for sure. And we put a lot of emphasis on special teams. Every head coach that I've had here is a pretty big on special teams. And special teams, the first thing I got told is special teams win games. And I think we kind of can clown about it sometimes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, a kicker wins games. And punt is the biggest change of field position in the game. And having a good kicker and a good punter is crucial on a football team. And why not?
We're excited to have you back for year 4. I'm glad it's going to be a healthy one for you. Best of luck, and thanks for the time today.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you. Good
Awesome.
man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dan.
Very random question, but when was the last time you punted a football?
Gosh, my last practice was probably the week leading up to the AFC Championship game a year and a half ago. That's the last one.
There have been no, what the heck, I'll go out to a local high school and let it rip.
No, because I don't want to pull my hamstring and not be able to golf.
Welcome to the Let's Rain podcast, revealing conversations with UC coaches, athletes, and administrators. I'm your host, Dan Horde. Our guest on this episode is somebody that I saw punt approximately 1,020 times. I counted it up between UC and the NFL. I'm obviously speaking about Kevin Huber. I told your folks once that I believe I saw you punt in person more than anybody but them.
I'd say you're probably right. Yeah, I think they probably made it to every game, maybe except for a couple in my last couple of years.
So let's talk about your dad a little bit, because he played football at Xavier.
Yep.
Back when Xavier had football, he punted, he kicked, he played some wide receiver. God forbid, were you a Xavier fan growing up as a result?
No, I can't say that I was. I've always been a UC fan. We'd come to football games and we couldn't go to Xavier because that was gone. So we always came down to UC and watched games down here. So, it's cool that he played there. He likes to say that he was a movie star because, his team was the team that played Marshall.
The first game after the plane crash.
And they lost. But
Xavier lost.
Yeah, Xavier lost. And he likes to say that he was in the movie. I'm like, okay, sure. So.
Didn't star in it, but
yeah.
If you look really closely. Did he teach you how to punt, or were you largely self-taught as a kid?
So I started out working with him. It was just kind of out in the street, just kind of things he would notice. And we would work from there. And then got to high school. We pretty much worked together, grade school, high school, some in college. In high school, there was a guy that I worked with named Randy Sias, who just really took a liking to the art of kicking and punting. So I worked with him a lot all through high school, and then my dad as well.
You kicked as well back at that age?
Yeah. When I got into football in 7th grade, it was kind of like who can kick, who can punt. I was like, well, I played soccer, so I'll do it. I'll figure it out. So I did kicking as well. I wasn't very good with that motion, but punting worked out.
It certainly did. You came to UC as a walk-on. Mm-hmm. Were you a preferred walk-on where they said, come here, compete for the job. If you win it someday, maybe you'll get a scholarship?
Yeah, so I got the preferred walk-on. I think how it worked out, from what I can remember, when Coach D'Antonio's staff came, that would have been my freshman year. One of the coaches was close with my high school coach, John Rodenberg. So we came in the school just to say hi and visit. And Coach Rodenberg was like, hey, you guys need a punter. And they're like, we don't have a scholarship for him, but we could put him for walk-on. So that's kind of how it came about.
And that's pretty normal for a high school punter.
Yeah. I had one offer actually coming out of high school at Wofford College down in North Carolina. And I turned that down and ultimately came up here. It was more for, at the time I was like, I had no dreams or hopes of going to the NFL. It was more like schooling, so they didn't have the major I wanted at the time, so I came up to UC.
So I don't know if that many people even know it, but you were a sub your first 3 years.
Yeah.
Did you think in the back of your mind, my chance will come, or did you wonder, will I ever get the opportunity to be the guy?
Yeah, I was always wondering if I would be the guy. I actually won the job my redshirt freshman year. I beat out Chet Irvin in camp, and I get in the first game, and this was like the welcome to the college football life. I remember my first game. I started the first week 1, and I'm getting there back the ready for my first punt, and I hear over the loudspeaker, Kevin Huber back to punt, and it was like, oh no. And I had one of my worst games ever. I think I might have averaged 20-something yards a punt, and I got benched the rest of the year. So
I completely forgot that, which you probably would have liked to have completely forgotten it.
Yeah, Then I got in the last game against Rutgers. We were practicing kind of like that rollout punt stuff, and I think I had 2 punts, and then I didn't play my third year.
That was a rough day, that Rutgers game. At Rutgers. Brutal weather. Rutgers was good. UC was struggling at the time.
Yeah.
I remember that one being rough.
Yeah. But, I think I knew I could punt really well. I didn't know if it would ever translate to the NFL, but I knew I could have a shot of starting, so that's why I kind of stuck it out.
So I know I've told you this story before, but your redshirt sophomore year, your third year, Coach D'Antonio leaves at the end of the regular season. Mm-hmm. They hire Brian Kelly to replace him. And Coach Kelly decides, I'm going to jump right in and coach the International Bowl. So the first time I ever met him was at one of the practices leading up to that bowl, and we're making small talk, and he goes, man, this punter is awesome. And the punter at the time was Brian Steele, who had a very solid year, good punter, but not an All-American type player. So I was a little bit confused. And then he said, yeah, the lefty over there. And he saw something from those practices that kind of led to your career taking off.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to talk with him much when they first got there, but I talked with who was the special teams coordinator at the time, Mike Elston. And it was kind of the same scenario. He came up to me, he goes, all right, so like talking about your guys punting, like what do you guys do? I'm like, hey man, like that's the start over there. Like I'm just kind of the backup right now. And he was kind of like taken back by that. So Brian he started that game and I came in at halftime. And that's kind of when I took over.
And averaged like 50 yards a punt in the International Bowl.
Yep.
And the rest is history.
Yep.
What did you do from that point that led to the next couple of years where you were first-team All-American?
So it was really the years leading up to that. I worked with a guy in Pennsylvania that my dad found. His name is Dave Rayner. And, I'm sorry, not Dave Rayner. That's another kicker in the NFL. I played with him in the NFL. Bill Renner is the coach I worked with. And he had another guy that he worked with that played with the Steelers for a little bit. And I went out to Pennsylvania, did a couple camps with him, and then did some individual work. And he really I was very raw my redshirt year and all through high school. And then he gave me like a really true form I could like follow and really know like if I had a miss hit, what actually went wrong.
Self-correct.
Yeah, exactly. So he was, I think, the really changing from just like a raw talent to like someone that could actually like take it and run with it and kind of grow the art of punting, if you will.
Very random question, but when was the last time you punted a football?
My last practice was probably the week leading up to the AFC Championship game a year ago. Year and a half ago. So that's the last time. So
there have been no, what the heck, I'll go out to a local high school and let it rip?
No, because I don't want to pull my hamstring and not go to golf.
So your final 2 years at UC, first-team All-American, Ray Guy finalist, set UC's records that still stand for single-season punting average, career punting average. What are you proudest of your UC career?
Oh, man. Geez, that's a great question. I don't really know. I never really thought about that, like what I'm most proud of. Geez, maybe just sticking it out, even though, coming in and, redshirting and then, feeling like I should have had the job all year. And then my third year, I felt like I should have had the job. A lot of guys will get frustrated and transfer out, but, I enjoyed my teammates and the relationships I made. So I just was like, I don't really want to, try to do that whole transfer thing. At the time, it was a lot more difficult than it is now. But,
right.
Just being able to, play with those guys and see the program build to the Orange Bowl, I think that was a pretty fun run to be able to see that happen.
I thought the Orange Bowl was a real aha moment for what UC football could be. Prior to that never really seemed like a realistic possibility.
Right. And I totally agree with that. It was always, we were just always looked like a mid-major and just, a smaller program. I remember one time, what was the coach? The old Ohio State coach.
Jim Tressel?
Nope.
Before that?
No, after that. I'm drawing a huge blank right now.
Urban Meyer?
Urban Meyer.
Okay.
He came in and talked to us when Coach D'Antoni was here. And I remember he, basically referred to us just like a tiny little program. And it was just like stuff like that. It was like everybody looked at us as a small program.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once, I think once that happened that we made the Orange Bowl and Coach Kelly took us to that. And the next year there was the Sugar Bowl. People were like, okay, we actually are a program. And like we have some great talent and we can, be on the same stage as the Ohio States and the Florida States of the world and compete with them.
When did the NFL seem realistic to you?
I say it was probably my first year that I got the job and I was an All-American and, I'd start to like realize like, oh, I'm actually pretty good. And, I can compete with these guys and you start getting some letters in the mail from agents, and I think that was probably the time I was like, okay, I should probably like really focus on this and take it more seriously, and so I think that was really the time I really noticed it.
5th round draft pick by the Bengals in 2009, the first of 3 punters taken that year. It's become such a big part of your legacy. Grow up in Cincinnati, high school, college, NFL, your entire career with the Bengals. But going back to the draft, at that point, was it a dream come true, or would you have been equally happy had you been taken, by the Texans?
At that point, I would have been happy to go anywhere. It was, I knew it was a likely possibility. Before the draft, we pretty much knew that there was 3 teams that were really looking, and they were the 3 teams that drafted a punter. But it didn't matter where I went. It was just get the foot in the door, get a chance to start competing. That's really all I cared about.
You got the news at California Golf Course, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Just didn't want to be looking at the draft. You wanted to go play golf with your buddies.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the draft's too long anyway. I'm not going to sit there and wait through it. I knew it was going to be a couple hours anyway. So I'm like, oh, let's get around to golfing and get my mind off of it. And I don't think my mom was too pleased because she was at home probably by herself watching.
She was stressed out watching the TV.
Yeah.
So your dad was golfing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad was golfing, and rest of my family, a bunch of buddies. So we were all just out there having a good time.
You joined the team in 2009. The Bengals go to the playoffs. They miss in 2010. Then they go 5 years in a row. So 6 of your first 7 seasons were spent on a playoff team, but one that never won a playoff game. Why?
Oh, man. That's a great question. And I think, if I could put my finger on one thing, I think there was maybe some discipline that lacked in those teams compared to the more current teams. And it's we had great talent. We had top to bottom, I think, some of the better teams, but it's everything that makes a playoff is a really good team because it's so hard to make the playoffs. But then it's just a matter of who's most disciplined, who can keep their composure, and I think that's maybe at the end of the day what kept us from winning those games to get over the hump and make a late run in the playoffs.
That was obviously a big problem in the final of the playoff losses, the 2015 game against the Steelers, the dreaded meltdown at what was then Paul Brown. After that game, in your mind, are you like, this is just never going to happen? Yeah,
there was, you definitely have you start doubting, if it will ever happen. Because that was one of the most,
brutal.
The Raiders game that we won was very emotional, but that game I've never been through so many lows and highs in a short period of time, and they weren't just like little lows and highs. It was like, holy cow, we're winning, we're gonna win. It's like, oh my God, we're gonna lose. Like, what is going on? But yeah, it was that was a brutal game, and the scenes afterwards in the locker room were wild. It was not good.
Yeah, final 2 minutes of that game. McPherson touchdown pass to A.J. Green. Perfect interception. It's over. You've won.
Yeah.
Jeremy Hill fumbles, penalties on Vontaze and Adam Jones. I mean, like you're saying, in a 2 minute span, the ultimate highs and lows.
Yep. Yeah. That was it was wild. And I don't think I've ever, experienced anything like that ever again. Just that was pretty crazy.
So the catharsis that came with the playoff win over the Raiders, leading to the Super Bowl in 2021, what was that like for you, having spent a decade with the franchise and understood the 31-year playoff drought for Cincinnati football fans?
It was pretty incredible, because knowing what the city has been through, what they've been yearning for. To hear, it was a different type of cheer. It was like just so much relief, and you look around and people are hugging, and it was just wild. And to see, the videos that got posted on the internet, that night and the following days, just to see how people responded to that was one of the coolest things I think I've ever been a part of.
Leading up to the Super Bowl, and you were a captain. You were out there for the coin toss for Super Bowl 56. I mean, when you think about being a kid punting at McNicholas High School, and now a decade later, or decade plus later, you are one of the guys going out to represent the city, the franchise, in a Super Bowl. That's incredible.
Yeah, that was cool. It's like there's a photo of us walking out, and it's like I was looking, I was like, that's a really sweet photo, just and I I had no idea, 10, 12 years ago that I would ever be in that position, and just to have that memory and to have that, it's pretty special and something I'll always hold on to.
Let's hit on some individual moments. 2013 against the Steelers, Terrence Garvin lines you up on a punt return from Antonio Brown, breaks your jaw, cracks your vertebrae. These are serious injuries. You were very good-natured about it at the time, but that's the type of thing that can end a career.
Yeah, and at the time it was sure he got in my head, like up my jaw a little bit, but like the hit was, you're allowed to kind of, he was coming lateral, and he got me good. It was just it was part of the game, and I don't do many coverage drills to know like what I'm doing. So I get back to my phone, and there's a lot of guys texting me, a lot of my buddies like, man, you got to put your head in a swivel, and they're giving me a hard time about it, but it is what it is. It's like guys get hurt all the time. It just happens that I wore a smaller face mask, so I'm a little more exposed, and it just happens.
That was 2013. The next year you went to the Pro Bowl. Did that make it that much sweeter that it was immediately after this injury that ended your season, kept you out of the playoffs? 1 year later, you're a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, I think that was pretty cool to be able to turn around like that. I was out for probably the first 5 months of 2014, so I couldn't really do anything. So, and when I got back, I was ready to go. I felt really fresh. Obviously, my legs, I hadn't done anything. So, it was a really cool feeling to be able to go through that injury and then come back and have my first Pro Bowl that year, and kind of flip the script a little bit.
Half of your job was holding. Are your most vivid memories in terms of great moments more attached to being a holder on game-winning field goals than, say, a punt that pinned the team inside the 10?
Oh, for sure. I've got a couple memorable punting moments, but I think more so it's the holding. From the game-winning kicks with Evan in the playoff run to holding for Chad in the preseason game in New England, just stuff like that. It's fun to be able to think back on those things, and I think I definitely have more memories from holding than I do punting.
You developed a great friendship with Evan McPherson and obviously helped him immensely in the early stages of his career with your experience as a holder. How many times was he mistaken as your son?
A couple. Yeah, we were at a UC game. I brought him down to the game. We were up in the press box, and a couple that I know from Anderson, they were like, "Oh, is this your nephew or your little brother?" I'm like, start laughing. I'm like, "No, he's
my teammate.
He's my teammate. Yep, he's our kicker." And she was so embarrassed when that happened. But it was there's been a couple times where he's been confused for either a brother or a nephew or a fan or something like that.
Yeah, I think he told me once that maybe at a golf course, like the guys with the carts thought that he was your son.
Yeah, that'd been another time too. Yeah,
that's amazing. Your final 3 years were spent with Joe Burrow as the Bengals quarterback.
Yep.
What's different about him? What makes Joe Burrow who he is?
I think it's just his mentality of wanting to win. He doesn't really care what that is, what that takes to do. For a fact he's going to put every ounce of energy to making sure that happens. And I wouldn't say he's a huge, vocal rah-rah guy that's going to get in your face and scream, but he's going to lead by example. And the way that he, carries himself, he comes out of practice and he'll sit at his locker and just stare off and go through all the plays in practice. And even after games, he does that, and just the way he takes care of himself, and he quietly kind of talks to guys and gets guys in the right positions, and I just think his mentality is incredible, and it's just it just grows on people, and guys just don't. It's like he has that aura that guys don't want to let him down, and it's impressive to watch.
So it's been about 15 years since your UC career ended, and there's become this legacy of great punters. Jimmy Smith was a Ray Guy Award finalist. Mason Fletcher, who's still with the team, was a Ray Guy Award finalist a couple of years ago. How much of a point of pride is that for you, that Cincinnati has almost become punter you?
I love it. We need to get over that hump and get one of these guys to win it. But yeah, it's great to see so many punters coming after me that have had really great careers. I wish Pat O'Donnell would have stuck it out here. We had another guy. He went to warmer pastures down in Miami, but I get it. But it's just cool to see that. And now we've got Mason's brother here, so he can pass the torch on to his brother when he's done, and hopefully keep that going. Max
is next. That's right. You're also a very visible UC fan. You go to basketball games a lot. You've got the opportunity now that you're no longer playing for the Bengals. How much joy do you get from still being in Cincinnati and seeing the success that UC athletics are enjoying?
I love it, and I love that it's growing more now than just football and basketball. You see baseball having a great year, golf has been phenomenal, and then seeing like the women's basketball getting the recruits they're getting in right now. I just love seeing the entire program grow, and it's nice to get back into a big conference to start seeing that happen again. Have really good competition, because when I first got here, we were Big East, and we were playing the West Virginias and Pitts and all that, and it's just such a different atmosphere and environment and feel for the players to be able to have that. Just to be able to sit back and watch it now and enjoy that, it's pretty special.
I mentioned earlier you were the first punter taken in your draft. The third was Pat McAfee, who's a billionaire now with this broadcast empire that he's building. So we know what he's doing in retirement, but I don't know that we know what you're doing in retirement.
Right now, I'm not doing much. Dabbling in some things. Just kind of figuring out where my next path's going to be. So in the meantime, the majority is me golfing, traveling. Just really hanging out. Trying to like actually be retired and not like jump right into something new yet. Just give myself some time to just have fun and just enjoy a fall and not have to worry about going to camp. And I think they're in a month.
Yeah.
So
it's coming soon.
I was actually with Evan a couple of days ago, and he was talking about. I was like, oh man, I
started to shake a little bit.
I'm like, you guys gonna be back in a month? I'm like, that sounds awful. So
you've been to Japan, you've been to Korea, you're going on a golf trip to Scotland. You are seeing the world, taking advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, it's been fun, and I'm excited to take all these trips and just enjoy not playing football.
You earned it. Congrats on a phenomenal career at McNicholas, UC, and with the Bengals. Best of luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you. I appreciate it.